Right, so welcome to everyone to day 2 of the right view sutta, one very important sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya. There's still some people coming in, I noticed, but anyway. So very welcome again, and let's start with a guided meditation as we did yesterday, and then I'll talk a little bit more about the next part, which now we're getting into the nitty-gritty of things, and it's going to be really exciting. At least I think it's very exciting. All right. All right, let's start with meditation. So just sit comfortably again. You start again by just relaxing the body, checking to make sure that it's really comfortable. Checking the legs and how you're sitting. Relaxing all the muscles, moving a little bit or stretching. Checking the back. Just make yourself as comfortable as you can be. Checking the belly and the chest. The shoulders and the arms. Bring the shoulders back a little bit. And release. Feeling the sensations in your neck and throat. Just being aware how your body is in this moment. Bringing love and kindness to all these parts of your body. Checking the back of the head. I always notice that during meditation, if there are some thoughts, I get a little tension in the back of my head, especially the bottom part. So then I can focus on that and let it go. And checking all those muscles in the face, muscles in the forehead, relaxing them all. Just the intention of relaxing, bringing love and kindness to these areas, bringing mindfulness to it. Around the eyes and the temples. Around the ears. Around the nose. The cheeks. Around the mouth. The chin. Relaxing all those muscles in your face. For me, I always notice that sometime during the meditation, during the relaxation, some deep breath comes and just relaxes me a little bit more. You can also do that at the end, just a few long deep breaths. And see how this feels to be relaxed. It's very enjoyable, comfortable. It's okay to enjoy that. Be with it. Allowing your breath to come back to a natural rhythm. just how it is, without changing, without trying to control the breath. Just observing, just knowing, just how it is. Allowing the breath to calm, become tranquil. Right now, you've got nothing to do. Don't have to go anywhere. Just being here. Let go of all the things that you have to do later on, all the things that happened in the past. Just enjoy this moment. With the next in-breath, just go inside and look in your body and see what kind of feelings there are. And then I don't mean the growth or tensions of the muscles, but more subtler feelings of emotions might be there. Every emotion has a resonance in the body, quite often in the torso, and sometimes somewhere else. We learn to identify those, not react, just being with them, giving them love and kindness. And eventually they'll change and go away. Other emotions might come up. The pressure around the heart, or some feeling in the throat. Could be anything. You don't have to name the feelings, just be wisdom. Understand that they're just a natural process that is happening. They're not you. They're not who you are. They don't define you. You have some anger or annoyance. What does that feel like? Or if you have some craving for something, what is that like? Depression or anxiety, or maybe just love and kindness, whatever it is. What does it feel like? What is the feeling tone? Just being the knower. Don't try to control these things or chase after them. You don't wish them to go away. Just be with it with love and kindness. Just knowing. all, we need to recognize what is happening and accept all these feelings. Even if we're not aware of these feelings, we still react to them. But if we become aware of them, we have a choice. We don't have to react. We can simply be there and observe. Eventually, and we can really be with it, accept it, not wanting it to go away or clinging to it, just watching it from a distance. And eventually, it might give us some insight on why it's there. And these are valuable gifts. So bringing that love and kindness to it is very important. Without that, it's sometimes difficult to just be with it. Like you are with your best friend. Watching, learning how this mind-body structure works. What is this being that you call you? Patiently observing. Coming near to the end of the meditation. Let's take a minute just to reflect back. Just put that question out there to your mind. What just happened? What has changed? And finally, we share the merits of our practice. So all the suffering beings in the world. So many suffering beings. Above, below, all around. All beings big or small, far or near. Humans or animals. Maybe other creatures that we can't see. May they all be happy. May they all be peaceful. May they all finally realize Nibbana. Hey, welcome back, everyone. Mhm. Sometimes it's difficult to just, you don't want to just get up and run away and do stuff. Much better just to relax for a minute and just let it sink in. Let's go to our next exciting part of the Majjhima Nikaya 9. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dangang sanghang namasami. All right. So where were we? We had just created the world. The 3 states of bhava, continued existence. So the existence in the sense realm, the realm of the luminous form, and the formless realm. So now what causes that? Well, what causes it? is grasping. So continued existence originates from grasping. Continued existence ceases when grasping ceases. The practice that leads to the cessation of continued existence is simply this noble eightfold path. And then there's a whole lot of you can't see that in the translation, but it's a lot of dots and a lot of repeating of what it said before in previous parts. Pali, by the way, is incredibly repetitive, and that's partly because it's a good teaching tool. At the time of the Buddha, like nobody wrote anything down, so everybody had much better memories, I think. Everybody would remember things, and it's much easier to remember if you repeat things. So we have a lot of repetition in these texts. So, might there be another way to describe a noble disciple? There might, reverence. A noble disciple understands grasping, its origin, its cessation, and the practice that leads to its cessation. And here it comes, like what is grasping? What is the origin, its cessation, and the practice that leads to a cessation? So there are these four kinds of grasping. Grasping at sensual pleasures, views, precepts and observances, and theories of self. So I'll just unpack that because this is quite an important part. So grasping, the word is upadana, and it literally means something like uptaking, like up is the same as in English, uptaking. So it's like taking up of a new life, and it also has this, like most words in Pali, or a lot of words in Pali, they have sort of different meanings. You can't really translate them one-on-one in our languages quite often. So there's also this clinging is another translation that is used. Another word that is used is fuel. Just like we saw at the beginning of this sutta, the ahara and upadana come from the same etymological origin and has a similar. Pardon me. One moment. It has a similar kind of meaning of fuel, and this is what creates these worlds. It creates the world that we are getting born into. So what is this grasping? So, well, grasping for sensual pleasures, we can all understand. This kind of, there's something that you see or you like, and you really want to run after it, and you want to grasp it, and it's. But I also give Bhikkhu Bodhi's translations of all these terms. So he says sensory desire. Okay, that's kind of obvious. Now, views, precepts and observances, and theories of self, they're actually something that is unique to human beings. Like everybody who has a pet knows that they run after sensual pleasures, food or cuddles or walkies or whatever it is. They just run after these sensual pleasures, and they're either dictated by that or by fear of running away from something. But we also have a different mind, which actually originated about 70,000 years ago. And I'll just take a little detour into explaining that. I'm sorry, I still have a little bit of a cough, so I'm trying to. So before 70,000 years ago, Homo sapiens was just an insignificant ape, if I can call it that, just like other humanoids, like Neanderthals, etc. And what happened 70,000 years ago, there was a slight shift in our evolution. And this slight shift made it possible for us to start reasoning, to start talking together. Like before, like there were like animals also live in packs, so the humanoids live together in packs and work together, but you have to know each person or each animal within the pack to really understand how things work. Now, language made it possible to also start creating things over larger groups of people without you specifically needing to know all those other individuals. So you could cooperate with much larger groups. So Homo sapiens came out of Africa and conquered the world. I won't go further into that, but one of the things that they started was this intersubjective realities. So for instance, a country is an intersubjective reality. A country doesn't actually exist. It's just this arbitrary line drawn on a map. But everybody who's born in the country will say, oh, I'm Polish, or I'm Belgium, or I'm this or that. And you make that your identity. So there's this sense of self is in there as well. So that's where this all comes from. So the views is like, well, we have certain views of what we want to believe. Everybody else who has the same view, we think is very intelligent. If somebody has a different view, we think they're stupid. So, and we really cling to our views. It's like, no, this is how it is. It's not different. What the other person says is wrong. This is how my view is right. So we start to cling to that. So that's one aspect of this grasping. Then precepts and observances. So there's on the one hand the precepts is like when we say that, we think about our precepts of our 5 precepts or our 8 precepts or the 311 that I have. But it's far more than that. It is any kind of rules that create things. So kind of laws as well. Like for instance, countries, they can function because there are sort of laws that everybody is adhering to, at least a large portion of the population. So and these rules, they create culture, they create these intersubjective realities. So they're not inherently bad. It's not like all this is bad. It's like the Sangha, for instance, like the monastic Sangha is an intersubjective reality. And that's there for a specific reason, in order to have a holding container for the Dhamma, for bringing these teachings to the next generations. And that's the reason. It's just this intersubjective reality called Sangha that we still have the Dhamma today, and that it hasn't been lost in 2,500 years. So they're not inherently bad or anything. They just are. But you know that we're creating that. And of course, theories of self, again, like you have this sense of self, and you are because you want to be. You want to exist, you want to be someone, you have an identity, all these kind of things. I'm just reading what Bhante Sujata, he basically says what I'm saying here as well. Yes, he also mentions religions. Yeah, religions, observances, and vows. They're also like part of this precepts and observances. So religions are intersubjective realities, and yeah. So this go further. So grasping originates from craving. Craving ceases when craving. Grasping ceases when craving ceases, and the practice that leads to the cessation of grasping is simply this noble eightfold path. So there we go to the next one. Why do we want to grasp these things? Why do we want to create these worlds? It's because we want to. We have a craving for it. So we come to that craving next. But first I want to ask if there's anybody who has, this is quite an important point, if there has any questions about this so far. Can't see if there's any on the chat. No. Carol.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, I have one question about, because there are these four kinds of grasping, and one of them is views, and other one is theories of self. And I was just wondering if there is a special, because it seems to me that theories of self are views. So, but here they are like explicitly underlined as something separate.
Yeah,
I
that's
wonder why it could be.
that's a very good point. Well, of course, a lot of this, or a lot of the Buddhist teachings, are about what is this self? What am I? What is this that I call me? And that's so this sense of self is something that's very important in the whole Buddhist teachings. In says like, well, the Buddha says there's a sense of self because there's a feeling. It's not like an inherent being that goes from life to life to life. We also have to see this sort of in the context of uh, all the teachings, all the Buddhist teachings, you have to also see in the context of the culture in which they were laid down. So this was like the beginning of the Iron Age, and there were other groups, and there were other ideas and other views about life, about self, that were there. And one of them was this concept of atta. And atta basically means this sort of one being that goes from life to life to life to life, never changing. That's the core of this self, of who we are. And people would also create their identity around that in a ways like, well, I am a Brahmin and I am therefore better than everyone else because I have been I am this Brahmin, so I get reborn as a Brahmin all the time. Like I am this. And the Buddha said, no, that doesn't exist. There is no such thing as that. So it's a little bit it's very specific kind of view, but yeah, views is of course a very broad kind of concept. And so you can say that as a view, the sense of self, but it's a bit more specific here to the Buddhist teachings. Yeah, but there's all kinds of other views as well. It's like there were views at the time of the Buddha that said like, well, there is no such thing as karma. So whatever you do, if you like kill all living beings and if you can get away with it and don't get killed yourself, then that's perfectly okay. You don't need to worry about it. You can do all that. And and of course the Buddha said, no way, that's not true. So that this kind of views happened there as well. And you can also see all kinds of other views that that people have nowadays. Let me see, Ellen. Is the construction of self a conditioned reality, like the value of money in a society? A functional reality only insofar as people and the central bank agree on it. Well, money indeed is a subjective reality. It's like there's not even there's not even in a bank anymore. Like when we started with money, there was actually physically some gold in a bank somewhere that it represented, and that's all gone as well. So it's just that an agreement that we've made to place value on things, which is quite. And of course, before money, we would trade other stuff, but it's a bit difficult. It's like, oh, I want a loaf of bread and I only have a goat. So how can I do this? Like I need to have either whole loads of bread, which I can't store, which is not working. So that's why we started using money. But so the construction is well, it is conditioned. The construction of our idea of self is of course conditioned as a thing as well. It's also subjective reality in the same way, in a way. Yes. All right. All right. So we continue to the next part. Oh, me. Oh, there we go. All right, next part. Might there be another way to describe a noble disciple? There might be reverence. A noble disciple understands craving, its origin, its cessation, and the practice that leads to its cessation. But what is craving? What is its origin, its cessation, and the practice that leads to its cessation? So there's 6 classes of craving. Craving for sight, sound, smells, taste, touches, and ideas. So the first 5, this of course are 5 external senses. And well, we can all see how you can crave that. You want to see beautiful things and go travels and see the Great Wall of China. And Ajahn Brahm always says, like, well, we here in Bodhinyana, we've got a wall. Look at that. Same thing. So sound, smells, tastes, especially tastes, touches as well. Ideas is a little bit of a different, it's again the translation. The Pali word is Dhammatanha, and so here what Bhante Sujata says, although its scope is broader than just discursive thinking, he's just, because sometimes these words are really difficult to translate. So he made it translate as ideas, but then he also explains it. It's like it refers to any kind of craving for mental phenomena, which includes, for example, craving for the mental pleasure of deep meditation. So there's anything that you crave, anything that you want. So you're sitting in meditation and you go like, oh, may my mind be like this. May I be in bliss and not with all these thoughts. And may I be calm and tranquil, and all that is craving too. And we have to let go of that craving, because otherwise our meditation won't work. As long as we keep craving, that is what keeping the mind untranquil. Yes, this is an important point that Ajahn Brahm pointed out to me, is that we have already seen this craving in the beginning a number of times. We've seen this craving as the cause of this upadana. Now, that's of course not so strange, as like we have seen that not upadana, ahara, the nutriment or fuel, that upadana and ahara are from a similar etymological root, so that's kind of logical. But also in the first part on the Noble Eightfold Path, and there the craving is described a little bit different. I only have Bodhi's translation here, but basically it's described as where were we? Oh yeah, the craving for non-being, for annihilation, and for sense pleasures. So in here you see it's like there's these sense pleasures, but how about craving for being and for non-being, for annihilation? And that is also part of this Dhammatanha, these ideas of wanting to be, wanting to live, or wanting to annihilate oneself, craving for non-being. So all that is in here as well. So it's not a different thing, it's the same thing. So is there anybody who wants, I see some things on the chat, so hold on a minute.
Yes, we have one question in English on the chat.
Yes. Is it possible to enjoy sensual pleasures without falling into upadana? Of course. You can go and have a wonderful time in meditation and not start craving for it. That's perfectly okay. But we'll come to feelings now, because all these 3 are, of course, everything's interconnected. It's more like feelings. You can enjoy feelings without going like, okay, I want to immediately start to hold on to them, but understanding that they are impermanent, and then you can just like enjoy something, and then it's like, I know it's impermanent, and let it go. I remember here a story that Ajahn Brahm told, is like when he was like in young monk in Thailand, and of course they were in this monastery, which was quite ascetic. They didn't have very much, but at some point, the parents of one of the other monks came to visit, and because like Ajahn Brahm doesn't trust young monks to go out all the way to the big city of Bangkok all by themselves and go and party, he appointed Ajahn Brahm to go with this monk, and his parents bought him an ice cream, and he hadn't seen ice cream for years. So, and so this other monk, he said to Ajahn, like, I know this is all impermanent, but does it have to be this impermanent? So this is like, yeah, we can enjoy these things as long as we know it's impermanent and it won't last. And same thing, if there's something that it's not nice, if we're somewhere where it's we also know it's impermanent and we don't get so upset about it. We're like, okay, just let it go. It will change. That's fine. I see a whole lot in Polish. I don't know if any of those are questions.
No, but we have one more question from Amanda.
Yeah.
It's the last question.
I see that one, yes. A general question. Is there suttas that also explain the other parts of the Eightfold Path in more detail? If yes, which ones? Or which suttas can you recommend if you want to understand the Noble Eightfold Path better? Well, there's one very handy thing on Sutta Central. If you turn on these how do you say it, comments from Bhante Sujato, then when there are suttas that explain a certain point a little bit better or a little bit more in detail, it will tell you there. And then you can click on that and go there. So I would do that for like Sammā Diṭṭhi Sutta. There's quite a few of these suttas mentioned in this whole sutta, or in all these comments on the Majjhima Nikaya 9. So I'd go there rather than me, because I have not all the numbers in my head right now. I'd have to search as well. So, but this is a very good source and in a good way in order to start searching. It's like, oh, okay, this point is more explained here. I can click on this and go there and then see what it's like there. So that's how you can study. So I'd encourage you to study yourself rather than me prompting things. Yeah, all right. Is there anybody else who wants to ask something before we move on? And let me move this thing again and let's continue. So might there be another way to describe a noble disciple? There might be reference. A noble disciple understands feeling. Its origin is cessation and the practice that leads to a cessation. But what is feeling? What is origin? It's cessation and the practice that leads to its cessation. There are these 6 classes of feeling. Feeling born of contact through the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. So let's stop there for a minute. So feeling here, that's not just like somebody touching you or you feeling something like I'm feeling the mug in my hands right now, something like that. It's a feeling tone, like just what we did in the meditation. It's the feeling tone of everything that you can like, for instance, you see something and you get a pleasant feeling inside. It's like, oh, I like this. This is a beautiful flower. Or it's something like, oh, I don't want to see this. This is terrible. Same with all the other senses. And same with the mind. With all the, our emotions have this feeling tone in our body as well. And we can feel that. It's like, oh, this is nice. Oh, this is not nice. Like same with in meditation. If you have a good meditation, or well, I shouldn't say good. If you have a meditation that's really nice and calm and tranquil, that's also got this feeling tone of, the feeling tone is basically, it's pleasant or unpleasant or neutral. That's in broad sense, that's the feeling tone. So And one thing I should say before we move on is like, okay, feelings create craving, but it doesn't have to. Like I said before, we like all these steps in dependent origination, the one conditions the next and the next and the next. And some are like, okay, when this happens, something will automatically happen. There's nothing you can do about that. But others, it doesn't need to happen. It can, if you're not aware, but it doesn't need to be. So with mindfulness, we can actually see these feelings and decide not to follow them, not to just to observe them from a little bit of a distance and like, okay, this is just feeling. I don't have to start craving. By the way, craving is not just like wanting to have things, it's also the opposite. It's like there's two sides of the same coin. It's like not wanting something is also a craving. So if you want to push something away, so I don't like this, that's also a craving. So feeling doesn't need to lead to that, and that's a very important part of our practice. And that is where we can actually break this chain. So let me see if I've anything in my notes. Oh yes, yeah. So in order for feeling to lead to this craving, we also need to have a delusion with it. We are not aware of what is happening. And so that's like, if we are aware, if we're really mindful, we can be with this love and kindness to everything and be mindful of what is happening. We don't need to start going into that craving. So then if we are wise, we don't have to do that. So what is feeling? Was there a question or is that? Okay, no, there was no question on the chat. I'll just continue for a little while. We can talk about this later. And what is feeling? What is, or no, I've got that. Feeling originates from contact. Feeling ceases when contact ceases. The practice that leads to the cessation of feeling is simply this Noble Eightfold Path. So might there be another way to describe a noble disciple? They might reverence. A noble disciple understands contact. Its origin is cessation, and the practice leads to its cessation. So contact is not just touch, but we'll come to that in a bit. What is contact? What is its origin, its cessation, and the practice that leads to its cessation? There's 6 classes of contact. Contact through the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. Okay. So basically, like if you see something, or if you have, let's take a step back. If you have eyes and there is a object that you see, then there is contact between the two. That's what contact is. You have to step on it, sorry. No, on the thing up underneath there. Sorry about that. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So so contact through the like if you have no eyes or you're blind and there might be an object there, but there's no contact established because you can't see it. So this is how you should see that. So contact is between our sense bases and the object out there. And with mind is also conceptualization, ideas, thoughts, etc. So there can be a thought arising and we go out to meet it. It's that contact between that. So I'll just continue on for a little bit. Let me see. So contact originates from the 6 sense fields. Contact ceases when the 6 sense fields cease. The practice that leads to the cessation of contact is simply this Noble Eightfold Path. Might there be another way to describe a noble disciple? there might be reference. A noble disciple understands the six sense fields, their origin, their cessation, and the practice that leads to a cessation. But what are the six sense fields? What is their origin, their cessation, and the practice that leads to their cessation? There are these six sense fields, the sense fields of the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. So we basically already talked about that because difficult to explain contact without actually explaining six sense fields. And here you actually have something that needs to happen. Like if there is an eye and it's actually working eye, and there is an object, there will automatically be a contact between the two. Unless you have your eyes closed, of course, and there's no contact. But from that contact, there's always a feeling. And that feeling can be neutral. Most of the time it's probably neutral, but that the point is there has to be a feeling from that. I think this is probably clear. Is there any, I don't see any things on the chats. Is there anybody who wants to say something about this? So one thing you might have noticed in all of this is that in all of these, let me take the question from Alan first. Is it possible to say that grasping is a precondition for letting go? I would think that you need to stop grasping, let go. You have to experience feeling, desire, and grasping, and fleeting or impermanence of the pleasure before the pain of loss to want to let go. No, I wouldn't say that. But what often does happen, I think this is what you're referring to, is that we grasp and we grasp and we grasp, and at one point we see this is really suffering, and the suffering becomes so high, and then at some point we just let go. So that tends to happen, but that's not absolutely necessary. That's only because of our not wanting to let go, because we have some kind of vested interest in whatever it is that we're grasping. That is the problem. But so letting go is that we can just start to see the craving and start to see, and without reacting to it, and just feel like, okay, now I understand this. Now I understand this is just what is happening. Before I was just deluded, and I was constantly in this loop of grasping, and but letting go basically means that you stop doing that. All right. So one thing you, thank you, Kim. Yeah, she noticed that my voice is trailing off and I need some honey. So let me just continue a little bit further, and then you'll see what I'm talking about. So, so here it says, might there be another way to describe a noble disciple? There might be reference. Let me, I moved off a little bit. If we go a little bit further up, where it says before the sixth sense field, it says a noble disciple understands the sixth sense field, their origins, their cessation, and the practice that leads to their cessation. And we've been reading over this sentence a number of times because it's very repetitive. What it's actually saying is that we're stopping our sense fields, and we're stopping our eyes, ears, nose, etc. Their cessation of that. And what we're doing with the Noble Eightfold Path, and what we're doing in our practice, is to lead that leads to their cessation. Some of you might have like, I want to experience the world through my senses. So this is very interesting. It is also we stopping knowing. And this is what starts to happen in deep meditation. At first, you start to notice that your senses start to stop. You first of all you close your eyes, but all these senses slowly turn off, and until the last one to go quite often is the hearing, because like I think from a survival point of view, from a survival point of view, the hearing is what alerts us to danger. So we still have that kind of in there. But then there's consciousness. Consciousness starts to turn off when you get into very much deeper meditation as well. So, all right. Now where are we? All right, yes, sorry. So the six sense fields originate from name and form. The six sense fields cease when name and form ceases. The practice that leads to the cessation of the six sense fields is simply this Noble Eightfold Path. There might be another way to describe a noble disciple. There might be reference, and a noble disciple understands name and form, their origin, their cessation, and the practice leads to their cessation. Now this is like, it sounds very cryptic, like what is name and form? Well, form is this stuff, just matter, basically. And Sujato has a very interesting comment on this. As name and form, nama rupa, is a Vedic concept. So it's like pre-Buddhist. It refers to the multiplicity of material form, which is rupa, so that's the form part, and associated names. So you name things, you see something, you name it. Like quite often if we name something, we have the feeling that we know it. So it's like the associated names, especially the individual sentient organisms such as gods and humans, which are ultimately absorbed into the divine like rivers in the ocean. So that's basically what it says in the Rig Veda and in the Upanishads. So those are all like pre-Buddhist texts. And that's where this term comes from. And what you see very often in Buddhist texts is that the Buddha takes these concepts that were around at that time, gives them a slightly different meaning to make it more clear. So he uses people's own understanding and then changes it slightly into a right direction. So what are name and form? Their origin, their cessation, and the practice that leads to that cessation. Feeling, perceptions, intention, contact, and application of mind. Now that needs to be, this is called name, so we need to unpack that a bit. It's actually not like metaphysical kind of things, it's actually real things. And how Ajahn Brahm describes it, it's like our consciousness, which comes next, is like the screen, and these are the things that appear on the screen: our feelings, perceptions, intentions, contact, and application of mind. So they're objects of our consciousness. So these 5 factors, they make it possible for our consciousness to function. And then that was nama, and then form, rupa. So it has the 4 principal states, and form derived from the 4 principal states is called form. Well, the 4 principal states are like earth, water, fire, and air. So they're corresponding to these various states of matter. So they didn't have we have a concept right now of like molecules and things like that. They had a different understanding of matter, and that doesn't mean that you put like earth, water, fire, and air into a jar and you've got matter. It means like the corresponding states of matter, like solidity for earth and liquids for water, heat and temperature for fire, and gas for air. So there's a lot more there. to unpack in that comment from Bhante Sujata, but you can read that yourself. It goes off our trail a little bit. Yeah. And then the next one is like name and form originate from consciousness. Like I said, that consciousness is the screen, and these things appear on it. It's like the 5 factors that make it possible for consciousness to function. So name and form cease when consciousness ceases. The practice that leads to cessation of name and form is simply this noble eightfold path. So consciousness ceases, name and form cease. Actually, name and form is sometimes also translated as mentality and materiality. So if you see that translation somewhere, then you know where it comes from. So for instance, if you go into deeper meditation, the first jhana also already, what turns off is already feelings and perceptions, and also the contact of the first 5 senses. So, and in the second jhana, the volition or the intention is actually volition. It's chetana is the word in Pali. It also means will. So our will that also turns off, as well as our attention or application of mind is the manasikara. Is like also translated as bringing to mind, focusing, attention, etc. So, and like name and form originate from this consciousness. Oh, and one thing that I've got to mention is like sometimes you might come across like a later Abhidhamma traditions, they have started to also include consciousness to this nama, to this name or material mentality, and that is just very confusing because it's not. It's like here is a very clear clear statement that consciousness is not part of that. It originates from consciousness. Yeah. All right, I think there might be a few questions, so let's bring up your screen again.
Yes, we have some.
We have Alan wrote something on chat, and then Łukasz. Okay, Alan, could you give your voice? It will be easier. Is it okay? And
Yeah.
then.
Let me say this. I'm just trying. I think Alan's comment I've already done.
Okay, so it's okay. So maybe Łukasz.
So I hope you can.
Okay, I can ask on the.
Oh, just 1 second. I was just going through all the questions on the chat, and there's one that I do first. So, does the problem suffering with contact arise as a result of it being taken over by the mind? I'm not entirely sure what you mean there, so I'll come back to you in a bit. So first, Lucas, you wanted to ask your question first?
Yes, I can. I just wanted to ask about this sixfold base Namarupa. If it disappears in jhanas or if it disappears in Nirodha Samapatti, which is also the highest state of meditation. Can you say something about this?
Like Namarupa, like the first, they disappear in jhanas, but at different times. So some disappear in, like some parts of it disappear in the first jhana, some in the second jhana, etc. And of course, like the last one to disappear is this the mind, like can't think of it right now. Okay, yes, the contact of this the mind that is still there for a long time, but eventually that also disappears.
In the meditations.
In the deeper meditations, yes. So, Katarzyna, do you want to explain what you meant?
My English is not good for the talk. I explain with mind, its condition about contact. Yes, but the mind will be smart or stupid with the contact, and maybe the mind not rozpoznaje, nie wiem, Agatko, pomożesz mi może?
Recognizes.
Właśnie nie, jak możesz przetłumaczyć, to będzie mi wygodniej, że właśnie umysł może błędnie rozpoznawać kontakt i jakby to przywiązanie może nastąpić właśnie w umyśle. Wtedy. Możesz przetłumaczyć, Agatko?
Kasiu, nie wiem, o co ci chodzi.
Okay. Because mind, it's not mind arahant, that the mind not recognize right, and in the mind will be suffering with the contact. I don't.
I think I know what you're coming from. What I mean, it's not the contact; it's the feeling that arises from the contact. And if we are not very mindful, if we're stupid, as you say, it's like if our mind is not there and doesn't see what's happening, we start craving in some way towards that feeling. It doesn't have to be. If it's neutral feeling, the craving might not be so. Sometimes it is, but like it doesn't have to be. But quite often we start craving for getting more of this or wanting to get rid of this. So that's when we're if our mind is not very bright and not very mindful with these feelings. So so it's not the contact in itself. It's the feelings that arises from the contact. And does that answer your question?
Yes. Feeling of the mind, tak? Yes, not contact or on contact on mind. Feeling arise.
So it's not the contact, but the feeling that arises from the contact.
Okay.
Where our suffering arises, because we start craving. And it is not the feeling itself that is suffering. It's only if we start craving that the feeling becomes suffering.
Okay. Craving on the mind?
Yes, craving is some part of the mind. That's what the mind does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Is there any more questions? Elizabeth.
Yeah, thank you very much. I wanted to ask a question in relation what Katarzyna just said. I think probably this is the reason what you've just explained now, why it's so often said one should sort of start practicing on the point with craving. And focus on that, and this is because this is so crucial. And but my question is, actually, you can use each part of the chain of the sort of Paticca and when you practice. So, am I right that actually in all cases, whether you start with craving or feeling or contact and observe this, the right way to deal with it is always more or less the same, so that you just observe mindfully, and that you don't sort of attach, you don't sort of want it or be repulsive or so, and you don't go into reactivity. This is my understanding. Or are there different ways of practice with, for example, deal with, I don't know, contact, upadana, name and form, and so on? Do Do you know what I mean?
Yes, it's like if you become aware of this whole chain of things, that's what you mean. It's like, oh, this happened now, and then that happened, and I saw something, and then there was this contact, and then from that arose a feeling. And but the key word that you mentioned is this craving. So we usually don't have a craving for contact in itself. We have a craving for the feeling that the contact that comes from the contact. So it's very good to practice and be aware of this whole chain of how it is, trying to see that whole chain in yourself and see how that works for you. But the craving part is always the tanha, and that's always in between like the feeling and the upadana. So it arises from the feeling. Is tanha that is inherent in this whole process.
Thank you very much.
There's one thing I want to say to everyone. If you are raising your virtual hand, absolutely great, and then your picture starts to appear at the first, but don't take your hand off until your question is finished, because I won't see you anymore. You suddenly disappear to another page, and I don't know where you are. So if you're at the first page with your hand raised, that's perfect. All right. Okay, let's go to the next. Where were we? Consciousness. So, name and form originates from consciousness. Name and form ceases when consciousness ceases. Consciousness is going to cease. The practice that leads to the cessation of name and form is simply this noble eightfold path. Might there be another way to describe a noble disciple? There might be reverence. A noble disciple understands consciousness, its origin is cessation, and the practice that leads to its cessation. But what is consciousness? What is its origin, its cessation, and the practice that leads to its cessation? So there's these 6 classes of consciousness: eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind consciousness. So it's a very different concept than what we have in modern psychology, where we have like the conscious and subconscious. The Buddha says, no, there is 6 kinds of consciousnesses for each of the senses. So it's like there's you see something and you're aware that you're seeing something, you know you're seeing something. So that is the eye consciousness, and the same for the others. And so in the mind consciousness, it's like we're aware of thoughts, of ideas, etc. That is what consciousness is. And consciousness.
So, can we say consciousness of the smell, consciousness of the eye, vision, consciousness of the touch?
First of all, can we just not unmute ourselves in the middle of things? Like I'll tell you. Sorry, Beata, and also raise your hand so I can see you. You happen to be on the first page, so I could see you. But it's easier for me if we just wait until I say that we're going to the ending. So otherwise, I miss your question. So sorry, let me see. So can you please say that again, Beata? I couldn't quite hear you because of it. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Can we say consciousness of smell, then consciousness of speech, consciousness of touch? So consciousness of everything, of every single feeling. Is it, that's what you mean before?
Yeah.
You meant
yes,
before.
yeah. Everything is separate. So there's the eye consciousness is not aware of sounds. It's
exactly.
only aware of what you're seeing. The ear consciousness is aware of sounds, and there are different senses. Basically, there's different consciousnesses, and you can also see this a little bit if you're in your meditation. You hear something, and you might notice that your mind goes out to meet that. It's like there's a car coming by or so, and it's like, ooh, that's like it's almost as if your mind goes in that direction. and the same with all these other senses. They can see it's like, oh, there's a different consciousness there for each one of them.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. And my apologies for interrupting you with that.
And my apology is for interrupting you.
That
was a very good experience. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you. I don't feel bad about it because you teach me. Do not feel bad about something. So this is wonderful. Another way of understanding myself. Thank you so much, and sorry about that again.
No worries. So, is there an overlap between these types of consciousnesses? Well, the mind consciousness, according to Ajahn Brahm explains this, is that the mind consciousness sort of follows each one. It's like you see something and you know that mind consciousness, you know that you've seen it. That's how Ajahn Brahm explains it. It's like the ear consciousness, and then you know that you've heard something. Now, there are people where things get a bit more complicated, where they can, for instance, see sound or things like that, where these things are sort of confused in a way. But that's more like, that's of course not the norm. That's not how most of us experience life. No. Right. Is there any more questions about this now we're here and before I move on? Oh, yes. Oh, Beate. Yes, please.
Beatka, on mute.
You have to unmute, yes.
Unmute.
I'm sorry. Okay. So can I understand, is there as many consciousness, as many of senses?
Yes.
Or more? Or
no,
just as many consciousness, as many of senses only, or there is more consciousness?
Yeah,
okay.
like you've seen
Only.
throughout this has a lot to do with our senses, with all 6 of our senses. Like in Buddhism, we have 6 senses. The mind sense is also a sense. And so there's all of these steps up to the craving is about our senses. So this one as well.
Okay. So there is, can we say there is 6 type of consciousness?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We have another question on the chat, Venerable.
Okay. Thank you for letting me know. Which type of consciousness is when someone is thinking about some kind of logical puzzle that has nothing to do with the Dhamma, like chess? Well, there's a couple of things going on there. Of course, you have the eye consciousness, otherwise you can't see the chessboard. And of course, like there's mind consciousness. You have to be aware of what is happening, and you have to think about things. So there's all this mind consciousness is there as well, and probably touch consciousness. It's like, oh, everything is involved because you have to pick up the pieces and move them physically. So there's this touch as well, and so there's a lot of things that are involved. Maybe you also listen to something somebody says about it. I don't know. And there's an ear consciousness. So there's a lot of these things involved at the same time. Well, maybe not at the same time exactly, but at least one after the other in quick succession. All right. There's no further questions. We'll just move on. The next part becomes a bit more cryptic, at least I think so. So consciousness originates from choices. Now I'll come back to that word choices later on. Consciousness ceases when choices cease. The practice that leads to the cessation of consciousness is simply this Noble Eightfold Path. So might there be another way to describe a noble disciple? Their mind reverence. A noble disciple understands choices, their origin, their cessation, and the practice that leads to their cessation. So what are choices? What is their origin, their cessation, and the practice that leads to their cessation? There are these 3 kinds of choices. Choices by way of body, speech, and mind. So I just want to come back to that word choices. The Pali word is sankhara. And Bhansha Jato is unique in that he translates that as choices. and most other people like Mika Bodhi would translate it as mental formations or something like that. Bhante Sujato explains it a little bit different as choices, and because it's very similar in this sense to the Pali word Chaitana, which means the will. So that's why he uses these choices, and I'll explain that in a bit. So what he says is also is that Sankara in early Buddhism has three main doctrinal senses, and the first one is this broadest sense of all conditioned phenomena. It's like basically as meaning everything except Nibbana. So anybody who has ever in the past been reading the books of Carlos Castaneda, that's the tonal. So I'm not saying you should read that. It's no point reading that, but it's basically the same concept. So the second thing is something. Sometimes it is a physical or mental process or activity, so such like a vitality or breathing or breath like that. But quite often, Sankara is also explained in terms of like the five aggregates. So the five khandhas is one of them is Sankara. And according to Bhante Sujato, that has the sense of morally potent volitions or choices, and is a synonym of Chaitana, intention, or karma, deed. So so you can have these various kinds of basically I would say karma formations would be a good translation. I would think it's like anything that we do, that we want, our intentions that lead to a certain karma, to a certain way of being also in the future, if I can say that. So he says in this sense, it's the moral choices for good or ill that propel consciousness into a new rebirth. So now what that means is like, first of all, let me give a very short definition of karma. Karma is not just something only about your next life. For instance, if you do something like you do something wrong, like you steal something, for instance, and you might create sort of a habit pattern. It's like, oh, this worked well. I could get what I wanted through stealing, so I do it again and I do it again. And so you're creating this negative habit pattern of doing things. And if not, and it is quite possible that you get caught and you have to go to jail and you get punished. So then you're asking, why am I getting punished? It's like, this was working so well. And I could get everything I wanted this way. It's like, well, you've done something which is harming other beings. And you get your punishment is the fruition of your karma in this case. So your karma is your intentions of like that, your habit patterns that you're starting that move on until something stops that, and until you learn that there are better ways of being that are non-harming. So, and that creates new births as well, but it can also be that in this life you get the results of your karma. So it's not necessarily always about rebirth. But if you are not get caught and you keep on stealing, and at some point you die, then that habit pattern carries over. That kind of energy continues. This is how you've learned to be, and that creates a new life. And then you start doing it again, just until you learn to stop. That you learn, oh, this is harming other beings. I can make other choices which are better, which are also make me feel good. As soon as you do something like stealing, you actually don't feel good inside. And that not feeling good can also start to fester. You see that sometimes in people who've done really terrible things, their feeling of guilt just follows them in their entire life sometimes. And that's their own punishment. You create your own punishment. And that is also a result of your karma. So it's about like the intentions, the choices that you make, so all these intentional formations that you're creating, thoughts, and so it's like it says, choices by way of body, speech, and mind. So what is like choices by body and speech? We can sort of say it's like, okay, I make a choice to do something, I make a choice to say something, but how about choices by mind? It's much more subtle. It's this intention to start doing things. So it's actually before you start speaking or doing things, there is already an intention, or you start thinking about these things. That already is choice. So, and that creates consciousness. So that's an interesting one, isn't it? It creates our consciousness in the future. It creates the way that we're going to, in the direction that we're going to go, and how we're going to see the world, how we're going to experience the world. So, yeah, volitional intentions, Ellen, that's not, I already said that, I think. So there's lots of questions now, so let's do that first. Let's look at the chat first. Which types of consciousness is when somebody is thinking about some kind of, oh yeah, we've done that, volitional intentions. Is karma the consequence of ethical or unethical intention or action in thought, word, and deed? Karma is not the consequence. Karma is the deed, basically. And the deed has consequences. And not all deeds have consequences. Of course, it's like, well, we all do stuff all the time. We eat, we go, okay, that has the consequence that our body gets nourished. But not all the things that we do actually have a consequence that is like also a rebirth kind of consciousness, like that if we would die right now, that it would have the effect that we would take it with us. It's like a lot of them do not, like going to the bathroom, for instance. So I don't know who was first, but I think it probably was Lucas.
Yeah. I just wanted to ask a question about the sankharas and how to deal with things like this, thinking in the practice for several months and then going out of the practice for some time also, and they always going back, and how to keep this consistency. I mean, the old sankharas sometimes came back, and the old also addictions, all the ways of doing things coming back, and it's like a cycle, a little bit sometimes.
Yeah. Sometimes like you can also see that like we've been for our whole life, before we met any kind of practice, we have been doing a whole lot of stuff. And out of delusion, without knowing it, and those habit patterns are still in us. And then we come to our cushion and meditate, and we want to be quiet, and it doesn't work, and we have all these thoughts, and it takes a long time to uncondition our mind or recondition our mind in a different way. So I think first of all, what's important is just to keep at it, and to also, instead of just keep pushing at it, is like just keep on doing the same thing over and over again, trying out different things and see what works and what is the best practice for you. So one thing I found very helpful, for instance, is to first relax the body. Quite often when you come to a meditation retreat, they say, oh, sit down and observe your breath or so. And a lot of people find it really hard. And I found it really hard too when I started doing that, because I didn't do the first part. And because if you look at the suttas before going to the breath, it says establish mindfulness. Sit down quietly in a nice place, solitude, where you don't get disturbed so much, and establish mindfulness first of all. And I never did that because I wasn't told that. So when I started understanding that, my whole practice changed. So also with the thoughts. Of course, there's still times when I've been really busy, and I sit down on my cushion, and there's all these things that say, oh, I shouldn't forget to do this, and these things are still there, and it's normal. After a while, it tends to, if you just keep sitting, keep sitting with that, it's restlessness. It basically means we're not content at where we are right now. We're not content in the moment. And we want something different. We have this craving. We want something different. We want our meditation to be nice and peaceful. And it's not working. So just being content with what is actually happening, even if that's lots of thought. Right now, this is how the mind is. Our practice is not about getting to a certain state. It is about understanding how this mind-body structure works. So we started first by relaxing and just becoming mindful and starting to look at, like, how is this mind-body structure? Oh, there's a thought. What is this thought really? And if you start looking at the thoughts, that can be very interesting practice too. It's like you have a thought, and by the time that you notice it, you're already far away quite often. Trace it back. Where did it start? It started in something very different. So you get some insight about how your thought patterns work. Okay, that's for instance, one little thing that you can do. Looking at how does it feel? What does the thought make me feel like inside? Thoughts and emotions have a lot to do with each other quite often. And what does it feel like inside? Can I see some kind of feeling neutral or how do you put it? Or pleasant or unpleasant somewhere in my body? And how does that feel? What is the feeling tone that goes with the thought? So just try to experiment things rather than just I have to sit and be quiet. That doesn't work straight away, but experiment, see what works, see what doesn't work, and see how this mind-body structure is. And as long as we're just content to be with the mind as it is, then at some point we will notice that the mind starts to calm down. But not if we want it to calm down, because then we have craving again. So we're always in this sort of loop we want things to be in it with it, and the only way it works is by stopping wanting. So one thing that also sometimes works for me is just to just be here, feel the space. Okay, I'm here right now in this moment, and this is what I'm hearing, this is what I'm seeing, well, lights falling through the eyes, this is what I'm tasting, this is what I'm feeling inside, this is all these kind of things, all this kind of input that is there at that moment, just being with that and knowing it. And that also tends to calm down the mind. And what we do at the end of the meditation is just a very short, like few minutes, just to reflect back. How did it go actually? And not in order to think about it or in order to start coming up with an answer but just to let that question be there in that space and let the mind work it out itself. The mind is the mind does a lot of things without us consciously being aware of it. So just allowing the mind to learn by itself. And at some point you come to a place where you just can ask, like, well, mind, what do you want? And when I do that, the mind's go, I just want to be quiet. Oh, and that's it. It stops. Might come back to thoughts later on, but so there's all these kind of things that you just can't experiment. how does your mind work? And just be content with whatever it throws up. And that doesn't mean that you should follow your thoughts and just like, oh, I'm just going to sit here and daydream all the time. But as soon as you see, it's like, oh, there is this thought. Oh, okay, that was a thought. Okay, so what is this thought, etc. Anyway, I'll go to the next question, Beate.
Beate again. So because there was a man, maybe I tell a very short story. There was a man, his wife was cooking. He burned the food and he was very angry at her about it. And the next few, maybe 3 days later, he was cooking and he burned exactly the same way food as she did before. And she felt a little bit bad, but look, is it mean that the karma is catching someone just straight up few days later, may catch someone, let's say catch someone few days later because she did it? He need to understand the fact that he may do this as well. So he got the experience just 3 days later. And that's why, is it karma catch him because he was angry and he did the same things, or is something different? So
yeah, a little bit difficult to answer that, but I mean, we are all responsible for our own minds. We're not responsible for the minds of other people. So if somebody gets angry, it's like we don't need to get upset about that because it's their anger and their thing. So in this case, I think he's angry is obviously a negative emotion that can that if it is something that creates harm for other people and it creates harm in also in the long run. I think it's this one time and he realizes it and it's like, okay, and you just let it go. But if it is a habit pattern that you keep on doing, then that's going to be your karma intentions and your habit patterns that you take further.
this going just about the fact that because his reaction, he got something the same.
Well, sometimes, but you mean that's something, I think I know what you mean now. It's like something from outside happens to sort of punish you in some way or to make you see things. It can be, but not necessarily. We punish ourselves. Like if we have like anger, then it doesn't feel good. We're already punishing ourselves right there.
So how the normal person may realize that he did something wrong if he doesn't know Buddhism? The normal person, that there is a woman, she took.
Well, that's just the point. That's why we're practicing. It's like you can't tell other people what to do. It's like some like mindfulness-based psychology things might also help people to realize certain actions, but they're also basically based on Buddhism. So if like the Buddhist practice for us is to become aware of our actions and the results of our actions.
I fully understand, but what about people they don't even know about Buddhism?
Well, they don't. Well, yeah. Quite often they don't. Sometimes they might do automatically become aware of what I've been doing this, but it's not like a structural kind of practice that they're doing.
Okay, can they suffering because they probably start to drink or take drugs, do not get this feeling of karma. So
yeah, that happens a lot, especially like trauma victims can like war veterans, etc. They start doing that in order to drown out all these very difficult feelings they're having. So it's a craving to annihilate those feelings, not feel these things, and to feel something more pleasurable. But it's also based on delusion, because you don't know the real way out of these feelings, not out of these feelings, but out of this craving, the real way out of suffering.
But is there any chance the karma, the bad karma will finish for them by itself someday, or some life, or not, or they need
by itself? I think would be difficult. You have to have these realizations. If you have done some bad karma, that it can be different. And of course, there's also all kinds of like therapies as well that can help in that sense, but it's not as structural as the Buddhist teachings.
But our good wish to these people may help.
Is that what you mean? Of course, it may help them, but they still have to walk the path themselves.
Of course,
they can't do it for them. Yeah.
Yes. Just to show them subconsciously their way. So, and the last thing is it enough to change karma by changing something right now? So, I decide to change. I don't know. I don't kill whatever I was doing, and it was wrong, and I understand it was wrong. Now I say no more.
Yeah, exactly. And you forgive yourself.
And is this the moment that I'm changing my karma?
You forgive yourself. You realize, first of all, that you've done something that was harming someone else or yourself, and then forgive yourself and move on, and then say like, oh yeah, I won't do this again. And what you can do is just stay with all these feelings inside the body that are there, and be like, oh, what's actually happening there? That if you keep on doing it, sometimes you have you do it again and again, and you don't want to do it, but you keep on doing it again and again. Yeah. So that it's good to just be there with mindfulness and see what is actually happening. What is happening inside my body? What are the feelings going on there? Can I give that some love and kindness? And then you might come to some realization of like something underneath that you hadn't seen before, that keeps on resurfacing. And then when you see that, you can let it go. But you have to be mindful of it first.
So loving kindness is the best in this case.
And loving kindness is always good. And actually mindfulness without loving kindness is not always working. Is actually most likely, like Ajahn Brahm calls it kindfulness, is to bring the two together, mindfulness and loving kindness. And that's the way to look at these things. You can be mindful and go like, oh, I want to get rid of this at the same time. And that's not working. So you have to have this love and kindness, this sort of distance, this it's fine. These feelings are here for a good reason. And they're there because like they've been conditioned. And so I let it go of my conditioning.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you very much, Venerable Vimala.
Venerable, thank you very much, Beatka. Venerable, we have one more question on the chat. Would you like to answer?
Yes, also Elizabeth, but it's already nearly 11 and we're not even at the end of the sutta. I'm very much realizing that. So how should we practice based on this sutta to develop right view? I do not think I quite get it. Should we start with the first method and work on it, or should we work on all of them at once, depending on what arises, and perhaps choose any of them? Well, it's not really one method. It is a whole system. This is how we are conditioned in the world. And so the first step of is the Noble Eightfold Path. The first step is to start reading these suttas, start listening to it. It's like, oh, this is how we get conditioned. Then we get like these good intentions of doing things in a way that is that doesn't harm other people or other beings or ourselves. And then we start to practice in meditation. So all of that is together. It's not just about meditation. It's the Eightfold Noble Path, not the one or twofold Noble Path. So all of that has to do with each other. You're by listening to suttas and or to Dhamma talks and to read suttas, you're training your mind, and your mind knows what to do when you get to or understands things by itself. It's not something we do, it's something we stop doing. So when we sit in meditation, we stop doing things. We just allow things to be and watch. Be mindful, be the knower. Watch what is actually happening. And from that process, insights will come up and we learn things. So it's not like, oh, I'm going to do this now, and now I do this. And there are so many meditation techniques that you can use, but yeah, so you have to figure out what works best for you. Maybe love and kindness sometimes works very good for people. There's also, in the suttas, it says like how to practice with certain hindrances that might come up. Like if we have lots of thoughts of anger coming up, for instance, towards a certain person, then at that moment, it's good to start practicing love and kindness. For instance, first towards yourself, because you're suffering too, and to all other beings as well as to that other person. And there's different methods that you can use for that. So depending on how your mind is, you look at like, what is the best thing to do right now? And eventually we want to come to a place where we can just sit and stop doing things. So this is the right view. Sutta is not about, okay, first now I'm going to be with consciousness somehow and do that. That's not what it is. It is understanding how this process works. We first start with a intellectual understanding, and from the intellectual understanding, we continue on to practice these other steps of the Noble Eightfold Path and meditate, and we get insights in that. These insights, they feed back into the into this first step, into the right view, with a experimental understanding. So that's what we want to get to, is to experiment this experience in ourselves, rather than the intellectual understanding. But we have to start somewhere. We have to start with an intellectual understanding, or like the roadmap. Like I can tell you, it's like, well, I don't know where you live, but you probably know the way to Warsaw. And so if you but if you've never been there and you just have the map, that's your intellectual understanding. It's like, oh, yeah, see on the map I have to do this and this and this. But you haven't been there yet. So this is basically the roadmap, and we need to start walking that. And that path is the Noble Eightfold Path. And so it has all of that in it. It has the selfless service in it. It has to start developing gratitude, start developing love and kindness, and all these things are in it. And it's something you can practice all day long. It's not just about meditation on the cushion. It is also about how you are in the world towards other people and other beings, and towards yourself. So that's all part of the path. So I hope I've Evelina, I hope I have answered your question a little bit here. Okay. Elizabeth, dear Venerable, yesterday and recently at the iSangha. iSangha? I wasn't there yesterday. Okay, recently probably. You mentioned a book on trauma, self-healing. Oh, could you please provide more information on this book or this method? It's not a method, but the book, I mentioned it yesterday, is called
The Body Keeps the Score.
The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. So it's quite interesting, and like this kind of research also shows a lot about how we are as human beings, how our mind-body works, and especially when how the mind works if it doesn't functions in the way that we normally see as normal. And we can learn a lot from ourselves by doing that. Oh, okay. Evelina has already
Thank you very much.
thing, yeah.
Thank you also for the links.
Yeah, let's just continue quickly on with the last part because it becomes we are nearly at the end, but all right. So we have done the choices, and choices originate from ignorance. And I think we already covered that. So ignorance or delusion. Choices cease when ignorance ceases, and the practice that leads to the cessation of choices is simply the Noble Eightfold Path. Might there be another way? Yes. The disciple understands ignorance, its origin, its cessation, etc. So what is ignorance? What is its origin? So not knowing about suffering, the origin of suffering, the cessation of suffering, and the practice that leads to the cessation of suffering. So we talked about that yesterday. So not understanding what is suffering, like if we taking what is suffering to be happiness and vice versa, like take drugs because it makes us happy, and then we don't see that that actually leads to more suffering. Things like that, or whatever else you do that you think is happiness. If it's happiness from the senses, it is impermanent, and impermanence is never a lasting happiness. So this is called ignorance. Ignorance originates from defilements. Ignorance ceases when defilement ceases. And the practice that leads to the cessation of ignorance is simple, this Noble Eightfold Path. So, I think that we're at the end. Oh no, not yet. Saying good reverence, those mendicants approved and agreed what Sariputta says. And it asked another question. But Reverend, might there be another way? There might be. A noble disciple understands defilement, its origin is cessation, and the practice that leads to its cessation. When they've done this, they're defined as a noble disciple who has right view, whose view is correct, who has experiential confidence in the teachings and has come to the true teaching. So here the experiential confidence, that the experiential understanding of these teachings, not just listening to me, but really understanding it from your own experience. It's a bit like if it's a small child and he sees his candle and it's a light and he's like, I want to grab that, and it tries to grab that, and then it burns himself. It looked so beautiful, and now it burns itself. That's the experiential understanding. He can be told, like, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. But until he actually touches that and burns himself, he knows not to do that. That's the experiential understanding of these teachings. So what is defilement? What is its origin, its cessation, a practice that leads to its cessation? There are these three defilements, defilements of sensuality, desire to be reborn, and ignorance. So let me see. Oh, this, where is this? Okay, no, that's another translation anyway. So what you see here is that, so the defilements of sensuality is also the taints, is quite often the translation, which is avidya, and it literally means outgoings. So we go out to the world. We go out, our mind goes out there to play in the world, to have this sensuality, to the desire to be reborn, and it's delusion. It's interesting that delusion is actually part of this, because the next sentence says defilement originates from ignorance. So the defilements, the asavas, the outflowings, they're part of ignorance. And so they now start to loop back into each other, these two last steps. So they're mutually dependent conditioning. So ignorance just leads to more ignorance. So more delusion leads to more delusion. And that's basically what it says here. Here we go. Yeah, it's basically a thinking that our happiness lies somewhere outside of ourselves and this moment. And we all see that, like you're in meditation and your mind goes out because you want to be happy somewhere else. You want to be not in this present moment. You want to be somewhere else, not in this present space even. You don't want to sit on this cushion. So that's like this defilements there of wanting something else. Let me see. All right. So yeah, I think we've come to the end. Now the last bit is so the defilement originates from ignorance. Defilement ceases when ignorance ceases. And the practice that leads to the cessation of defilement is simply this Noble Eightfold Path. That is right view, right purpose, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right immersion. So you see the Noble Eightfold Path is about 8 steps and not just meditation. A noble disciple understands it in this way. Its origin is cessation and the practice that leads to a cessation. They've completely given up the underlying tendency to greed, got rid of the underlying tendency to aversion, and eradicated the underlying tendency to the view and conceit I am. They've given up ignorance and given rise to knowledge, make an end of suffering in this very life. When they've done this, they're defined as a noble disciple who has right view, whose view is correct, who has experiential confidence in the teachings and has come to the true teachings. That's what the Venerable Sariputta said, and satisfied the mendicants approved of what Sariputta said. So here we come to the end of the sutta. So the last part is just again this repetition that we've seen all throughout, but just written out in full again. All right, so that's the end of it.
Thank you, Venerable. Thank you for these 2 days. It was very great for us. And I invite everyone for next weekend, the same time, Saturday and Sunday, we will be continuing with Ajahn Sunyo. And sorry for technical problems today. Technical Mara attacks us. So sorry. We do what we can, but...
You can ask Mara about stop to creating bad karma for itself. Yeah. So is it 1 o'clock finish the next week?
Yes. 1 o'clock. 4 hours will be our meeting last next week.
Is there any break in between? I ask.
There are more information about tomorrow's meeting in the email we will send you. Thank you very much, Venerable. Thank you very much, all participants. And sadhu,
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Yeah.
Have a wonderful day. Thank you very much.